and €1.12. LBC weather, heavy showers in the south of England easing tonight, leaving clearer spells, but persistent rains will slowly spread further across Scotland and Northern Ireland, a low of 8. Tomorrow, more thundery downpours for most of the UK, a high of 18 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm David Dom.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening to you. It's time to interview Matt Hancock. He's the fifth of the Tory leadership contenders that we'll be talking to. Tomorrow night we have Sajid Javid on at 9 o'clock. On Monday it's Dominic Raab. I think he's 9 o'clock as well. And then Wednesday next week it's Jeremy Hunt and Michael Gove. Will they both still be in the contest by then? Who knows? Still no reply from Boris Johnson, but I still live in hope. You can watch this hour on LBC's Facebook page, YouTube channel, Twitter feed, and on the LBC website at lbc.co.uk. Matt, welcome.
It's great to be here.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next hour. If you have a question for Matt, 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. So, you've been in the Cabinet for just over a year and a half, something like that?
A year and a half.
What qualifies you to be Prime Minister after just a year and a half in the Cabinet?
Well, it's actually the second time I've been in the Cabinet. So in total, I've been in government for 6 years. In fact, I think, although I'm the youngest of the those who've put their names forward to be Prime Minister, other than Jeremy Hunt, I'm the most experienced in terms of national level government. And, you know, when you run something like the NHS, as I do as Health Secretary, you see some of the really big decisions that have to be made. You take some of the really big decisions that have to be made. And that helps to prepare you. But the truth is that there isn't a job that's bigger than being Prime Minister.
What's the biggest decision you've taken, do you think, in your time in government?
Well, I think that preparing the long-term plan for the future of the NHS was pretty big. That's how we're going to run the NHS over the next 10 years. And you make these decisions and you prepare these plans with a team, of course, but ultimately, you know, you make the big calls of the direction of travel.
Let's talk about Brexit. We have to talk about that.
We were doing so well.
I know. I thought I'd descend down a hill. It's going to be the biggest thing for whoever wins this contest.
Right. Yes.
Now, you start at a bit of a disadvantage, don't you, in terms of being able to unite the party around Brexit, because every single one of your supporters is not a Brexit supporter.
Well, I hope that I start at an advantage in terms of being able to unite the country around delivering Brexit, because there are many of those who've been heavily involved in the Brexit rows and the rancour over the last few years, and instead I'll be able to turn the page and present a fresh face in this discussion.
Well, hang on, you've been in the Cabinet that's responsible for the fact that we haven't left the EU yet.
I've been clearly concentrating in the first instance on running the health service, making sure that that is running as effectively as possible. Of course, I've had a voice in the national debate over Brexit because everybody's played their part in that debate. But I haven't been one of those at the forefront in the trenches fighting over Brexit. I've been trying to get the deal through, trying to deliver Brexit, and supporting all those who are actually trying to get us to leave the European Union on the 29th of March.
But the fact is, in order to unite the party, you would expect you to have a sort of broad range of support from across the party, and at the moment you haven't. You've just got people who supported Remain in the referendum. You yourself voted Remain in the referendum. Today, two of your supporters voted with Labour to rule out no deal. And Caroline Spellman, Jonathan Ginogly, would you like to disown them for doing that?
Well, I said before that vote, I think everybody should vote against. It was a Labour motion, and it was a Labour motion against the government. So yes, I encourage all Conservative MPs to vote with the government. Absolutely.
So you become Prime Minister on July the 22nd. What happens then in terms of Brexit? What do you do? Because Andrew Leadsom was here yesterday and she laid out quite a detailed plan to manage a no-deal Brexit. Now, you clearly don't agree with her on that. What would your approach be?
Well, the thing about no deal is Parliament has made clear that it won't accept it in the same way that Parliament stopped it happening on the 29th of March. Ahead of the 29th of March, I put in place the plans for dealing with a no deal Brexit in the health service, which
what's happened to all those fridges, by the way?
Well, we're still preparing in case there's a no deal on the 31st of October, but it simply isn't an active policy choice that's available to the next Prime Minister, because Parliament has made clear that it will block it in the same way that it made that clear ahead of March. And I don't know whether you've had the Speaker of the House of Commons in the studio.
Sadly not.
But he's made clear that he'll support MPs to do that. The way we've got to deliver Brexit is to deliver on a deal. And so I've set out a clear plan of how we can do that, how we will do it, that can get the support both of negotiations to make changes to the future arrangements with Brussels, and Brussels have made clear that they're open to changes to the future arrangements and changes that will help to get the deal through the House of Commons. Because ultimately, if we try to go for no deal, the big risk is Parliament says no, and we end up with a general election and Jeremy Corbyn in office propped up by the SNP. That is the danger.
But in terms of the withdrawal agreement, are you saying, well, you recognise that the EU aren't going to change that at all? So are you seriously expecting the House of Commons to vote that through after it's rejected it so often?
I'm seeking a time limit on the backstop, which is the most controversial part of the withdrawal.
Why would you get that and Theresa May hasn't been able to?
Oh, because the first thing that I'd do, having set out this plan in advance, standing for the leadership of the party and to be Prime Minister on the basis of the plan I've set out, I'd have the mandate from the party to deliver it, and I would immediately have a vote in the Commons to show that this is deliverable. The reason that the EU didn't make this concession to Theresa May when they were considering it at the start of this year was because they didn't think that she was going to be able to get it through whatever. Now, the legal position of the EU is that the backstop has to be temporary. I am simply asking them to put that into a specific time limit. And the truth is,
have you got any indication that they would agree to do that?
There are indications, yes, and I have had a positive private response in terms of this overall plan. But it's not going to be easy to negotiate. But the trick to negotiation...
Well, Rory
Ian,
Stewart thinks it's impossible.
Well, the trick to negotiation is to understand what the other side are looking for. And the other side also want us to leave on the 31st of October before they get into their new commission and all the things that they want to do. They want to get this done. And more than that, they want to get it done in a way that doesn't cause great disruption to them, as it also would to us.
Who would you be
deal.
negotiating with? Because the new commission, as you say, doesn't come into force until the 1st of November.
And the existing commission exists until then. So there's one opportunity to do this with the Europeans, which is on the 16th and 17th of October. They have a European Council at which this can be agreed. So there's a clear timeline to be able to do it.
And what happens if it isn't agreed at that summit?
Well, I'm negotiating to succeed. And
well, I know, so was Theresa May. I mean, no one succeeds to fail.
Well, there's a difference. There's a big difference to Theresa May's deal. Firstly, on the substance, I think that in the future, in the long term, our relationship with the EU needs to be one of trading partners, not of us being a rule taker. And the problem of a customs type arrangement that was being proposed before is that ultimately we'd effectively be rule takers without a say over those rules. And we are leaving the European Union with the 5th biggest economy in the world. We need to be in control of our own affairs. That's one of the great upsides of Brexit.
That's fine. We can agree on that. But what happens if your deal does not go through this summit, because you've literally got 11 days then until the 31st of October. The default position then is that we leave.
Well, I worry that if the policy of the government were to leave without a deal, then Parliament would stop it. So there's only one good outcome here, and that's leaving with a deal. Because I don't want to end up with Jeremy Corbyn in Downing Street.
That's what Theresa May has been saying all this time.
Well, no, there's a big difference, and the difference is that I have set out in advance how I want to leave with a deal. I haven't started by saying I'll go for no deal if I don't get a good enough deal. I've started by saying this is how we must deliver this, because all of the alternatives of Parliament trying to, and the big risk of Parliament blowing up over a no-deal Brexit with the threat of a general election, or the big downsides of a second referendum and all that would entail, or letting Jeremy Corbyn in directly through a general election. These are all bad outcomes. There's one good outcome, which is leaving the EU with a deal.
Isn't one of the worst outcomes to extend Article 50 beyond October the 31st? Boris Johnson today, in his launch, I'm sure you were watching avidly, he said, well, it will be death by 1,000 cuts for the Conservative Party if that happens, if it is extended. But you seem to be saying that, well, if we don't get agreement at this summit, there will be no alternative but to do that.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that we need to seek to negotiate to get that deal. And you don't go into a negotiation saying what your plan B is, because then you automatically end up in a plan B.
But you also don't take no deal off the table, which is what you want to do.
No, that's just a recognition of fact. There is a brutal truth here, which is Parliament has already, in the past, ahead of the 29th of March, voted. It legislated. Actually. Yes, it legislated. It passed. It changed hundreds of years of constitutional principles in order to stop no deal happening then. And
very marginally.
Even so, the Parliament is Parliament, and we live in a democracy under the rule of law set by Parliament. And I want to instead get a deal. Look, it's about how you negotiate. This week, I settled the junior doctors' dispute that had been ongoing for years with the BMA. And that negotiation had taken 9 months since just after I arrived as the Health Secretary. And the way that you get a successful negotiation that now has to go to the BMA in a referendum to be concluded. This is the NHS negotiation. The way we got that successful agreement with the BMA leadership was understanding what they were looking for, being clear about our objectives. But I didn't go into that negotiation saying, and if this doesn't work, then we'll do the other, because you have to negotiate to succeed, and that's what I'm seeking to do. And frankly, this is the only plan that has a credible chance of both being negotiable with the EU and being able to get through the House of Commons, and therefore to deliver Brexit. And then we can get on to all the other things that we want to talk about.
We will get on to other things in just a moment, but we may get some more Brexit questions from our listeners after 9:30. You never know. 0345 6060 973 if you'd like to press Matt Hancock on his Brexit plans, or indeed anything else. It's 9:15.
This is LBC.
LBC has been working with the Get Into Teaching campaign to look at how a career in teaching can shape lives beyond the classroom.
There is this fantastic moment when they're struggling, and then suddenly, poof, this light goes on and you can see, and they suddenly get it, whatever it was, and it's incredibly rewarding and it's incredibly fulfilling.
Go to lbc.co.uk for more information on a career in teaching, to hear the full discussion, and for a chance to win an iPad Air and Apple Watch with LBC.
Starting a business is a test of character. Opening a business account shouldn't be. In fact, it should be effortless. With Tide Business Banking, you can open a current account in minutes with no monthly fees, invoicing, accounting integration, and much more. It's why we're trusted by over 70,000 UK businesses. Download the Tide app or search Tide Business Banking today. Subject to terms and conditions, account approval and opening times may vary depending on checks required.
High quality, affordable kitchens designed in your own home. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
Book your free Room Sense home design visit and we'll measure up, show you samples, create a stunning kitchen design and give you a quote all before we leave.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Book today at roomsense.co.uk.
We'll keep on turning. At the AA, we're always trying to make your journey better. Our mechanics fix 8 out of 10 cars at the roadside, usually within 30 minutes of arriving. You could say we're simply the best. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong song. Join today from just £4.50 a month. Visit theaa.com. The AA, because anything can happen. New customers only. T's and C's apply.
Many people struggle with loose and missing teeth. Often their dentist has told them nothing can be done. Let the TDC team restore your teeth, your smile and your confidence with our award-winning Smile in a Day dental implant treatment. Book your free consultation today. Visit smileinaday.co.uk.
When it comes to cruising, you don't want to feel like just another number. Thankfully, the new smaller boutique ships from Saga offer a more personal service. There's a door-to-door chauffeur to take you to and from the ship.
Bon voyage, Mr. Goodman.
Cheers! Every cabin has a balcony with a sea view. Beautiful. Dine at one of the intimate speciality restaurants. Delicious. And each ship has a whole host of venues to match your mood. And guess what? I'm in the mood for dancing. It's a boutique cruise experience personal to you. Boutique Cruises by Saga for your spirit of discovery.
Save up to 35% on our all-inclusive cruises. Search Spirit of Discovery to find out more. Over 50s only.
Leading Britain's conversation. Iain Dale. Tweet at LBC.
18 minutes past 9. Matt Hancock is with us taking my questions, and in 10 minutes' time it'll be your turn. 0345 6060 973. You can watch us live on the LBC website at lbc.co.uk, on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. The BBC licence fee decision that was made for over 75s, what's your view on that?
Well, I think it's a mistake, and I think that the BBC should think again. I think that they're well funded, and I think that they should live within their means. But I think there's also a much bigger question, which is, how is a national broadcaster funded in the future? Because, you know, the idea of a TV and the technology of a TV is becoming redundant. Right? People watch the BBC in the same way that they listen to LBC on their phones, on their laptops, and TVs increasingly are the same thing as a computer, just, in a different part of the room. And so I think there's a much bigger question that needs to be asked, and I think that the BBC should live within their means rather than.
But this was a decision. This was a decision put on them by Jeremy Hunt, your predecessor, but two, I think.
Yes,
culture secretary.
There's three former culture secretaries in this.
Well, indeed.
In this leadership race.
But you could have changed that when you were culture secretary for 6 or 7 months. You didn't change that decision, and the BBC had a choice. They either had to shut down various channels,
but that's
or
not
they had to do. Well,
Iain.
it is true. They had to save £750 million.
Now, I know the BBC's finances, having been the culture secretary, and the BBC, I think, should live within their means. They're extremely well funded. They do a great job. I'm a big supporter of the BBC, as well as commercial radio like LBC, which I love too. So I'm not one of these people who complains about the BBC, and I think that they do try their best in terms of balance. But they are well funded, and we've got to ask this question. In the world of Netflix, how do you have a national broadcaster?
Well, you answer your own question then. How would you fund the BBC in the future? Because it sounds to me as if you think the licence fee is just basically redundant now.
Well, we have a funding agreement for the next 10 years that was struck, I think, about 2 years ago. So there's about 8 years to run.
But now's the time to have that discussion.
Well, exactly. And I would predict that over the next 8 years, over that time, almost certainly, this idea of a TV being a separate box that's different to your computer will completely disappear for many households, and then the question, do you have a TV, will become a weird question to ask,
and so therefore, do you have a TV licence fee?
Right,
Becomes a weird question.
How do you have a public broadcaster?
Well, you could just fund it from taxation.
That's one option. Another option is a subscription type based model, and I think that it's really good that the BBC are looking globally at that sort of model, because obviously the BBC is respected around the world. There's only 60 million of us here on our island. Since their output and their content is so well respected around the world, they can also make sure that they get revenues from what they do globally. In fact, they're doing that increasingly. Killing Eve was on in America before it was on here, because
which is weird in itself.
But it was because the commercials worked for the BBC. So I applaud the way that they did that, and I think that some of their worldwide work has been fantastic. There's far more that they can do out of that.
More than hinting that you think by the time your second term as Prime Minister is over, the BBC licence fee would no longer be there.
I think it's a debate that we need to have as a nation, and it's better to have the debate.
But you need to
now.
lead. Why don't you lead that debate and say now? I think that the licence fee is outmoded and should be abolished within the next 10 years.
Well, I'm leading the debate by raising the question. We've got 8 years to get to an answer. I think it's something that we should discuss. I think that we could. There's lots of different ways to. We've suggested two this evening in this conversation.
But leaders give straight answers to questions like that, don't
yes,
they?
And
if Margaret Thatcher was here now and she was sitting in your seat, she would give me a straight answer to that. Yes, I believe the BBC licence fee is outdated, and in 10 years' time it won't be there, and I would support that, and I would replace it with X, Y, or Z.
Well, when I've done the policy work, I'll come back with the answer. But what I'm doing is raising this as a really important issue that we need to address. But we have got time to address it, and in the meantime, I think the BBC should live within its means.
A lot of Conservative Party members and indeed MPs will partly be basing their decision on who their next leader should be by thinking, can I imagine that person at the dispatch box against Jeremy Corbyn?
Yes.
And if I can, how would they perform?
Yes.
Now, in a leadership hustings last week, you reportedly described Jeremy Corbyn as an anti-Semite.
Yes.
You reportedly said if Corbyn became Prime Minister, the UK could end up with the first anti-Semitic leader of a Western nation since the Second World War.
Yes.
That is quite some claim to make. You can accuse the Labour Party of institutional anti-Semitism if you want, but to actually say that about the leader of the opposition, that shocked quite a lot of people.
Well, I think it's true. And I think that you can see by those things that he's defended, the symbols he's defended. For instance, the mural in East London that he defended 18 months or 2 years or so ago. I also think it's true, and this really worries me, in terms of the impact that his leadership of the Labour Party has had. Because when it is irrefutable that we have a religious minority in this country now who live in fear of one of our major political parties, or at least its leadership. And it is irrefutably true that the Jewish community, members of the Jewish community, fear the Labour Party getting in power. And in that sense, the damage has already started.
That does not make Jeremy Corbyn anti-Semitic.
Well, as I was saying, there is direct evidence of his defence of a mural which was deeply anti-Semitic, but it's also the consequence of the anti-Semitism in the Labour Party has already had an impact. And I think that when a religious minority in our country fears one of the major political parties, then that is a stain on our society, and I deeply regret that it's happened, and I very much wish the Labour Party would get its act together.
Do you not think you went slightly over the top? You were playing to an audience.
No, I was telling the truth.
Okay.
And I'm very happy to repeat it because it's incontrovertible.
Let's move on to the NHS. The accusation that many of your opponents make about the Conservative Party is that it's determined to privatise the NHS.
Yeah.
Now, you've said that there won't be any privatisation on your watch.
That's
you sent out a tweet last week to Donald Trump. Dear Mr. President, the NHS isn't on the table in trade talks and never will be, not on my watch.
Yep.
And yet, you've been criticised also for allowing 21 NHS contracts worth $127 million to be tendered for private companies. Now, people call that privatisation.
No, privatisation is not going to happen to the NHS. The NHS must always be free at the point of use. I think actually the NHS is a very patriotic service. It's something that binds us together as a society, that anybody, no matter their lot in life, can have access according to their need, not ability to pay. I think that's absolutely terrific. I think it's one of the brilliant things about Britain. And I know as Health Secretary, when I go around the world, people are really envious of it. Now, throughout its history, the NHS has always provided services by a combination of direct provision, where the NHS employs somebody, and by buying other things. So the NHS infamously still has a load of fax machines. It didn't make those, it bought them. The NHS uses all sorts of equipment. It buys all of its drugs from private companies. The majority of GPs' services are private partnerships and private businesses. The NHS has always bought stuff from the private sector, and always, I predict, will, even under the most hard left Labour government.
So under Tony Blair and Gordon Brown, I think I'm right in saying the percentage of contracts tendered to the private sector was about 5%. It's now gone up to 6%, I believe. You don't seem to recognise those figures.
Well, you're picking one tiny part of what the NHS does. The NHS as a whole, the budget of the NHS...
No, I accept that, but people think that there is a trend now to award more contracts to the private sector. It's 5% under Labour. It's now been 6% on average under the Conservative coalition and now the Conservative government. And the fear is, among some people, that you intend to increase that exponentially.
No, I've got no such intention. But broadly, that's also an extremely, if I may say so, narrow lens through which to view this. So, for instance, 100% of the NHS drugs budget has been spent on the private sector, and always has. The NHS, the 125 billion of the NHS finances is spent in the following way. About £7 out of every 10 is spent on employing people, doctors, nurses, porters, managers, the works. About £2.50 of every £10, about 25% is spent on buying things in, scalpels, bedclothes, eye surgery, all sorts of things. And about 5% is spent on capital expenditure. I mean, and that's always been broadly true. It is true that under the Blair years there was a specific row about one particular part of expenditure. But we've got to step back. You've got to say, how do we best deliver health services in this country? How do you best deliver for patients? And how do you best support the 1.4 million people, brilliant people who work in the NHS? And that's what I concentrate on.
Would you serve in a Boris Johnson cabinet?
Well, I very much hope that he'll serve in mine. But yes,
what I expected you to say.
So I, the reason I say it like that is the front runners never won the Tory leadership race in the past. I am very much hoping to and looking forward to forming a cabinet. I'd certainly be open to asking all of the other 9 contenders to
all
serve
of them,
in that.
really?
No, to open to. I'll consider that. I'm not giving out any jobs yet, but I'm very much open to it, and I would serve in any of the other 9.
Final question from me, and then we go to callers. Theresa May made a brilliant speech on the doorsteps of Number 10 when she first became Prime Minister, but obviously her premiership has effectively been blighted by Brexit.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that we could expect you to really concentrate on, certainly apart from Brexit? Because, I mean, we'll remember Margaret Thatcher, she had an agenda, selling council houses, trade union reform. Tony Blair had an agenda that we all recognised at the beginning. What would be, if you can in sort of less than a minute, just give me one thing that you are absolutely determined to do that is different from what's been done over the last few years?
Yes. Winning the case for free enterprise and a free society. I think that after delivering Brexit, the big battle of the 2020s is going to be to win this argument, because ultimately that's how we create prosperity in this country. That's where the jobs come from. Being pro-business, that's how you help make people's lives better. It's how you fund public services. I'd like to do a long-term plan in education in the same way we have with health, with the big increase in funding. You can only do that with a strong economy run on a free enterprise system. And around the world, free enterprise has brought billions of people out of poverty in a way nothing else has in history, and we are complacent about it at our peril.
We are going to come to your calls in a second. It's 9:32. First, though, let's get the news headlines from David Tom.
Boris Johnson and Sajid Javid are the last of the 10 Conservative leadership candidates to launch campaigns to be Britain's next Prime Minister. Earlier, the former Foreign Secretary insisted the UK must leave the EU by the now October deadline, but the Home Secretary claims his rival is yesterday's news and has a more credible plan. The Topshop owner, Sir Philip Green, says catastrophe has been averted with a rescue deal for his Arcadia group. Creditors and landlords have agreed a plan which includes reducing rents for the retailer and saving around 18,000 jobs. And police expect there'll be more victims coming forward after the jailing of a former football coach who sexually abused young players. 66-year-old Bob Higgins targeted the boys while working at Southampton and Peterborough between 1971 and 1996. LBC weather, heavy showers for southern England easing tonight, so clearer skies. More persistent rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland, a low of 8 degrees.
This is LBC.
Do you want to give your kids a head start? Think about it. Are you all set up to help with uni fees or a house deposit? No? Then it's time to Wealthify. The sooner you start a junior ISA with Wealthify, the more you can build them a tax-free nest egg. Just invest a lump sum or pay in monthly and let Wealthify do the rest. Start a junior ISA today. For more information, download the app or visit wealthify.com. With investing, capital is at risk and you could get back less than you put in.
In 1972, Swale Heating was born. Since then, we have sold thousands of boilers from top manufacturers like Worcester Bosch. This year, we will sell our 250,000th boiler for free. And you could be the lucky winner. Visit swaleheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Unlock the city with the new Range Rover Evoque. Know your side streets. From your inner city beats. Know your underbelly and where to fill your belly.
Your lamb, madam.
Know your north from your south. Live for the city with the new Range Rover Evoque. Land Rover, above and beyond.
Esso are delighted to announce that customers can now collect Nectar points with every fill. Ahoy there, Captain Rubberlegs. Pump number 5. Gentlemen in waders. Since you haven't caught any fish, how about catching a train? You've got enough Nectar points now and you've been angling for a reason to get away. You can even take a net. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Esso Nectar, helping fuel your everyday. Available at participating Esso sites. For more information, visit esso.co.uk.
So, Mark told me about Hiring Hub. The best kept secret in recruitment, he said.
Yeah?
They help you find quality candidates and fill professional jobs fast. Gets great reviews too.
So, you're going to go for it?
Is he single?
Not with Mark, with Hiring Hub.
I posted an IT job a few days ago. Interviewing 4 people tomorrow.
Want to fill professional jobs faster? Search Hiring Hub and post your job today.
Is he though? Single?
Rosa!
At the AA, we're always trying to make your journey better. Our mechanics fix 8 out of 10 cars at the roadside, usually within 30 minutes of arriving. You could say we're simply the best. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong song. Join today from just £4.50 a month. Visit theaa.com. The AA, because anything can happen. New customers only. T's and C's apply.
Iain Dale on LBC.
25 to 10 here on LBC. We're in the company of Matt Hancock, Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, Conservative MP for West Suffolk. He wants to be your next Prime Minister. So if you have a question for him, actually all the lines are full, but just keep trying. 0345 6060 973. Start off with a text. Matthew in Oswestry says, did Matt Hancock ever sniff glue behind the bike sheds?
No.
But the drug question, presumably you've answered that. I mean, it seems to have dominated the campaign over the last few days.
Yes, I made a statement about it at the weekend, but I also think, actually, that...
What did you say? I missed it.
I said that I did try cannabis when I was at university, but I've never taken cocaine. But I also think that there's a broader point, which is, I do think people should be entitled to a private past, and the reason for that is that you don't want people in politics only who've lived an unblemished life and lived a perfect life, and I think we should be encouraging all sorts of people into politics.
Apart from running through a wheat field, what's the worst thing you've ever done in your life?
Well, great question. I've done a fair few things, Ian.
Oh, go on.
Do you really want
treat
to go
us?
into them?
Treat us with one of them.
Oh dear. I'm trying to think of something that is suitable for 9:30.
So there's clearly a lot of things that aren't.
Wednesday night. Oh, so what's flashing through my mind?
You a flasher?
No, it's kind of images are going through my mind.
Right. Okay. I'll rescue you for that.
Nothing too bad.
Norman's in Dartford. Hello, Norman.
Good evening, Ian. Good evening, Mr. Hancock.
Hello.
I've got to say, you sound like Theresa May Mark II, according to Brexit. But one question I'd like to ask you is, what do you do if the European Union refuse to put a time limit on the backstop?
Well, I think that they will. I mean, that's the honest truth.
No, that's not the answer. The question is, what do you do if they refuse to?
Yeah, I understand the question, but I'm not going to go to the European Union and say, by the way, if you don't give us what we need, then I'll do this other thing, because that makes it easier for them to just say no.
I've got to tell you, mate, you haven't got an answer, have you?
I have got an answer. I'm just not going to blow up my chances of a decent negotiation by undoing my negotiating position. We've got to have the strongest possible negotiation, and the way that you negotiate, and I've been in some of the biggest negotiations that there are. And the
have you really?
Yes, I have.
I've got my severe doubts about that, mate.
Well, you may have your doubts, but have you negotiated with the BMA? These are tough negotiations, and being able to land a big, tough negotiation, it means setting out your plan and what you're trying to achieve very clearly, understanding what the other side are looking for, having creativity in terms of how you go about landing something that both sides can agree with, and it's vital that we not only bring back something that works, that is agreed, but also something that the House of Commons can sign up to.
It's a simple question. We've been 3 years, and the major thing has been the backstop. And they've refused to change it, extend it, to put a time limit on it. Your procedure is exactly what Theresa May's was. Keep going back there, and they say, no, we're not changing the backstop, so back we go again to Parliament.
No,
it's a nonsense.
It's a fundamental difference. I'll tell you the fundamental difference, and that is this. If you threaten that you're going to walk away if you don't get what you want, but then because the House of Commons wouldn't let no deal go through, that threat turns out to be an empty threat, then you've lost your negotiating position. I'm not going to lose my negotiating position by setting out what my plan B is before I've achieved plan A. I'm going to go and negotiate, and I'm going to bring it back.
Norman, thank you very much. Let's go to Louise in Worthing. Louise, what's your question, please?
Ian, Matt, good evening. Thank you for taking my call. So my question is this: despite the fact that I'm in Worthing in West Sussex, I'm from Scotland originally.
Yeah.
I am a Conservative councillor. I'm a Conservative voter.
Yeah.
And as much as Brexit is dominating the conversation and the leadership race for everybody, my biggest concern is keeping the union together.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, so what's your plan to keep the union together?
Yes, I totally agree with you.
I know you're having a Meg Ryan moment there.
I just agree with you so emphatically about the importance of the union, and I think that people down here in England sometimes don't realise how important it is constantly to be fighting this fight and making the case for why it's good for Scotland to be in the union, and also, frankly, why it's good for England to be in a union with Scotland. So I think there's two things. Firstly, on Brexit directly, how we deliver Brexit will have an impact on the strength of the union, and delivering Brexit on a deal is the best and safest way to deliver Brexit to safeguard the union. And the second thing is, I think we as the UK government need to be up in Scotland more, not just handing over all of the money to the Scottish government, but out there making the argument for why the UK is stronger together. I feel incredibly strongly about
what you just said there, by handing the money over to the Scottish government, a lot of Scottish people will feel rather insulted by that, because they will quote you figures to show that it's actually the other way around, that Scotland contributes more to the UK GDP than it gets back.
I understand that, and the point is that the money that's spent on public services comes into taxes, into the UK budget, and then it goes back to Holyrood. And the key point is we shouldn't just devolve and forget, which has been the criticism in the past. Instead, the UK government should constantly be making the argument for why the UK is important to people in England, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales, for that matter. I come from the Welsh borders. I was born in Chester, and I lived all my life till I was 18 right on the boundary with Wales. I understand what it's like to be on the borders between England and one of the devolved nations, in my case Wales, and I feel very strongly about the importance of the Union and the symbols. So for instance, for the last 10 years, we haven't had a UK government base in Edinburgh. There hasn't been somewhere that you can invite people to have a meeting and a discussion. We haven't had that, and we will very soon, because of a project that David Mundell and I kicked off when I was in the Cabinet Office a few years ago. And those sorts of symbols are important, because the UK is important.
What happened to your Welsh or Northwest accent?
I know, I kind of lost it. I had it until I was 18.
Did you?
Yeah. And then I went to Oxford University and I lost it. I've still got it a little bit, but if you
go back to that area, does it sort
of
of re-emerge?
Yeah. It comes straight back. I'm like at Christmas when I'm surrounded by my family, I sound like a northerner again. In fact, there's a problem for people from Cheshire, because in the north you sound like you're from the south, and in the south you sound like you're from the north.
See, I've kept my same voice from the Essex-Suffolk borders that I had when I was a kid. At least I think I have anyway. I can't prove it.
Well, you sound wonderful.
Louise, thank you very much indeed for your question. Were you happy with the answer? Will you be voting for Matt Hancock?
Well, I'll be asking the same question, or at least I'll be interested to hear the answer to the same question from all the candidates who are running. So, haven't quite made up my mind just yet, but I'm very much enjoying the discussion this evening.
Great. Well, tune in tomorrow. You can hear Sajid Javid as well. Thank you very much, Louise. Let's go slightly early to a break, and we'll take more of your calls in just a second. It's coming up to 8:45.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Tom Swarbrick.
Boris Johnson is yesterday's news, says Sajid Javid. He may well, though, be tomorrow's man. Are you persuaded that Boris Johnson would make a good Prime Minister?
Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
I want to live in a world where we still have polar bears, where we reduce CO2 emissions. I want to live in a beautiful world.
If you want to help fight climate change, get a smart meter. They can't solve climate change on their own, but with the smarter, more energy-efficient grid they help to create, they're a start. Search I Want a Smart Meter or call 0300 131 5555 today from the Campaign for a Smarter Britain.
Eligibility may vary. Available in England, Scotland and Wales. Calls from UK landlines and mobiles charged at a standard rate.
Some people find love par chance. I found love in my Citroën dealership. I looked at new Citroën C5 Aircross SUV with advanced comfort seats, and boom! They said, pay £1,794 up front, then £299 a month for 35 months. I love it. Visit your local Citroën dealership and find love too. New Citroën C5 Aircross SUV.
Citroën.
Citroën UK Limited, a credit broker, not a lender. Offer on PureTech 136-speed manual, 10,000 miles per annum. You won't own the car. Personal contract hire terms, eligibility and return conditions apply. PSA Finance UK Limited.
In the trade, sign up to Wix Trade Pro and get 10% off every time you shop with no minimum spend. Download the app to register. Always cheaper with Wix Trade Pro. Terms apply.
This year we will sell our 250,000th boiler for free, and you could be that lucky winner. Visit swellheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
Sharing credit card details on scraps of loose paper. Finding battered receipts in the wash. Stressing out your accountant. Expense management doesn't have to be stuck in the dark ages. Say hello to Soldo. Company cards that do your expenses for you. Give your team prepaid cards to simply spend, snap the receipt, and that's that. Spend smarter. See the light at soldo.com.
Paul bumped his knee against the kitchen door.
Exclamation mark, he yelled, at which point his wife burst in and bumped the door against his knee again. Ampersand, #**, yelled Paul. Swearing, a bad habit, but it can help us tolerate pain until we can find something longer lasting, like new Nurofen joint and muscular medicated patches for clinically proven 24-hour pain relief. Nurofen joint and muscular pain relief medicated plasters contain ibuprofen for pain relief. Always read the label.
G'day.
Hi, it's Sean from Bath.
Shauno.
I'm playing Sunday League and I forgot to bring my towel. Can I borrow my mate's?
Negative, big guy.
Borrowing a used towel from a mate is like borrowing his undies.
And you wouldn't put your groceries in another man's trolley now, would you?
So, what do I do?
First grab your pants and use them as a towel.
Then slip into commando stealth mode.
The Scots have been doing it for centuries.
And in much more severe weather conditions. It's a great idea, guys. Thanks.
No worries.
Foster's. Good call.
Drinkaware.co.uk for the facts.
Iain Dale. Text 84850. This is LBC.
It's 9:47. Let's continue with your questions to Matt Hancock. Sarah's in Grimsby. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Not at all. What would you like to ask?
I would like to ask Matt, as a young Conservative, one issue that I feel has been quite ignored by the leadership at large is the issue of FGM. There's only been one conviction since it was made illegal in 1985. I know it's an issue that probably a lot of people won't care about, but for victims and for people worldwide, it's rather traumatic. So I'd like to ask, what will you do to put down on it?
Of FGM? Yes. I think it's incredibly important. And I've already acted as Health Secretary. In fact, about a month ago, I was in Croydon, where we're opening a new dedicated FGM clinic so that survivors can get the support they need, both physical and for their physical and mental health. And we're opening these around the country, dedicated to ensuring that women who've suffered this terrible abuse get the support that they need. So I've done my bit as Health Secretary. I'll do whatever it is needed, and I think that both here in the UK, where we've really taken a lead, but also globally, there's a big part that we've got to play.
It is interesting because I think we have taken a lead in this country, but there has only been one conviction, and I mean, I think Sarah's probably saying, well, why on earth has there only been one?
Well, we changed the law to tighten up on this about 18 months ago, and I'm really glad to have seen that conviction relatively recently. But there clearly need to be more, because the evidence of the impact is very high. So we've got to do more on that side, but we've also got to do more to support those women who've been cut.
And Sarah, what would you like a future government to do that they're not doing now?
Well, I think it is quite a difficult issue because there is no sort of magic wand on it. It's very hard for victims to speak forward due to societal pressure. I think the best thing is education. I think if we teach victims that what's happened to you is not okay, it's got no religious basis, it's got no basis on anything, and also teach communities that it has no health benefits, because a lot of the people doing it think they are helping the victim when in fact they're setting them up for a life of psychological and physical pain.
Yes.
Okay, Sarah, thank you very much. Moses is in Ealing. Hello, Moses. What would you like to say?
Yeah, hi, good evening. I want to ask Mr. Hancock a simple question. Since you haven't held position of high office, do you think you have the experience to run a whole country, especially when with regards to the issue of Brexit, which I personally feel...
Do you not think that Health Secretary is high office?
No, I don't. Well, he hasn't been there where I looked at. He hasn't passed any policies. To be honest, apart, who in the country would know Mr. Hancock? I mean, I'm a member of the Conservative Party for over 20 years, and I do know Mr. Hancock.
Great.
But I don't think he's capable enough and has enough experience.
Well, I'd say this is part of my pitch, right? We need a fresh face. We need somebody who can turn the page. We need to, we've had politics has been so difficult over the last few years and bitter. We need to be able to cast forward, and we need to get we need to get energetic.
But how are you a fresh face? You said at the beginning of the interview that you've been in government for 6 years. You've been around the cabinet table, not just for the last 18 months, but also under David Cameron as well. How can you be seen as a fresh face?
Because I've got the experience to be able to do the job, running the NHS, as you said, Ian. That is a significant task. And I've seen and worked with 2 prime ministers close up, as you say. So I've seen the job. I've seen the pressures on it. I know how difficult it can be. But the truth is, nobody truly knows what that job is until they walk over that threshold in Downing Street. And
what makes you feel uniquely qualified to do that more than the other candidates?
I'm not saying that I'm uniquely qualified. I think I'm the reason that I'm the best candidate for the job is that I have a combination of the experience to do it and being able to turn the page on the Brexit row. And then I've got the plan and the energy and frankly, the optimism that we need right now as a country to pick our politics up and get it moving. Britain, in many ways, Britain is doing great. The economy's strong. There's a whole load of good things happening in our country. But our politics has been completely stuck. And we need somebody with the verve and the energy to pick it up and get things moving.
Moses, has he convinced you?
I mean, that's the answer I expected. But if I would pass advice to you, the issue is not about the fresh face. The issue is the heavyweights that you're against are the same old faces with the same old tired ideas. You should come across as someone with new policies. But your problem is you don't have any policies to bring forward, especially with the issue of Brexit. What are you going to do with the Northern Ireland issue? People want to know now, at this stage, what's the answer for the 31st of October.
So on the Northern Ireland issue, on the Northern Ireland issue, Moses, I'm going to have an Irish border council to actually resolve this problem, because whatever the solution to Brexit we come to, if we're going to have an independent trade policy, and I want us to, then we have to find a way to have that at the same time as having no hard border on the island of Ireland. And the best way to do that is not to turn it into a political football, but rather to get all the parties around the table, all the Northern Irish parties, the Irish government, the EU and the UK government, and work together on how to implement that at a technical level, the technology that you need, the administrative systems that you need, and get the buy-in and the support from the border communities.
Okay.
And so I've published a policy on that you might want to take a look at.
Moses, just finally, who are you? You say you're a Conservative Party member. Who are you likely to cast your vote for?
Rory Stewart.
Okay. Well, he certainly has an impact on this campaign one way or another over the last few days, hasn't he? Thank you very much. Mohammed is in Manchester. Mohammed, what's your question, please?
Hi, Ian.
Hi.
My question is quite simple for Matt. Good evening, by the way.
Hello.
My question is, clearly Matt has sort of highlighted where he thinks Jeremy Corbyn is anti-Semite based on his associations of past and things like that. Coming back to Boris, it called African children in the past as either having watermelon smiles. It calls Muslim women's veils as looking like letterboxes and bank robbers. Does he condemn those views or does he support them?
Well, that's certainly not the language that I'd use, and I think that one of the things we need to do in politics is have a language that's more respectful. I think one of the problems.
But he didn't ask if you would use that language. He asked if you condemned it.
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen those comments.
Oh, come on.
No, but I haven't.
We've all seen the Piccaninny comments, the watermelon smile comments. We know the letterbox comments. You can't get away with that. You've seen them just
I have
as
seen
much as I have.
comments about letterbox. This is not the language that I would use.
But do you condemn Boris Johnson for using that kind of language?
Frankly, I don't think anybody should use language like that.
So you do condemn that?
Look,
it's a simple question, Matt. It's yes or no.
Yeah, I do.
You do. Fantastic. Yeah. Are you happy with that, Mohammed?
I'm quite happy with that.
Yeah.
And I think those views were completely out of order. He had the chance to sort of condemn them today on his lunch. He refused to sort of condemn it. And I generally feel he's racist based on those views. And also, it's not just one sort of thing. In the past, he's got a good track record of it. And calling African children as having watermelon smiles is quite incredibly racist. And as a person of an African heritage, I do feel it as being quite racist, basically.
Okay. All right, Mohammed, you've made your point very well. Thank you. Nick is in Hackney. Hello, Nick.
Hello. I think the language that we need to focus on is actually the language of truth, and that seems to be missing across the board at the moment. What I wanted to ask about was how Matt Hancock, who was in Cameron's cabinet in 2010, can perpetuate the lie that the NHS is not being privatised.
I don't think you were in the cabinet in 2010, were you, Matt?
No, but I obviously, I am now.
So, what? Repeat your question, Nick. There, sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, error. How can Matt Hancock perpetuate the lie that the NHS is not being privatised when it was, from start to finish, it was Andrew Lansley said in 2005 in a speech, which was reported by the Chief Executive of the King's Fund, that the NHS was being privatised along the model of the former public utilities. And he said that unequivocally in a speech which was buried. And the Tory government have been denying since that they had any intention to reorganise the NHS.
We've literally got about 2 minutes left. So this whole question of privatisation keeps coming up. Whenever we talk about the health service on the programme, people ring in and say, look, why can't you see it is being privatised, and yet you tell us it isn't?
No, because it's going to be free at the point of use for as long as I have any responsibility for it, whether as Health Secretary or as Prime Minister. And the NHS is there for us all, free at the point of use. That's the long and short of it, and I feel that incredibly strongly.
But Nick, you don't believe that, do you?
No, I don't believe that. That's a really facile way to look at it. If you have health insurance...
It's not facile in the least. It's incredibly... It's not. It's the opposite of facile. The fact that... Hold on. Let me explain. Well, excuse me. The fact that said that privatisation is a mixture of outsourcing to the private sector, deregulation and land sales. It's very apparent that all those things are happening now in the NHS. You've just presided over the privatisation of cancer services at Oxford, which is clearly to the detriment of all the patients receiving those services.
Nick, I'm not cutting you off really, but we've only got 30 seconds left, so I've got to put those points to Matt.
On my watch, the NHS will be there for you, Nick, and for every other resident of this country, and it always will be, because it matters to everybody that whatever happens and however bad it is, the NHS should be there for you, no matter according to the ability to pay. It's free at the point of delivery, and it always will be so long as I have any responsibility for it.
Matt Hancock, thank you very much indeed. Tomorrow on LBC at 9 o'clock, it's the turn of Sajid Javid to come in to take your calls as well. I'll be back tomorrow from 7. Coming up at 1, it's Darren Adam. Next, though, Tom Swarbrick.
Iain, thank you very much. Welcome to the show. Tonight at 10.
After 3 years